That was an earlier conversation with the CEO of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Mark Sussman. Elsewhere, over 410,000 people in the Horn of Africa are learning to read and write. That's thanks to a new app, Daariz, that's been developed by a British Somali refugee turned tech entrepreneur, Ismail Ahmed. Conflict, climate change, and a lack of infrastructure mean that the region has one of the worst literacy rates in the world.
Hodan is patching up the roof of her home. The little money she makes as a domestic worker is not enough to afford a better house for herself and her daughter. But she hopes things are about to change.
When I was a child, I couldn't afford to go to school, neither could my parents, and I grew up in the countryside.
A couple of months ago, a colleague told her about an app, Daariz, that teaches people to read and write.
Now I can read and write. For the future, I aspire to secure a more fulfilling position than my current job and use my skills and knowledge to succeed.
The region of Somaliland declared independence in the 1990s in the course of a civil war. It's still not internationally recognized as a separate state, but nowadays is more stable than the rest of Somalia. Old conflict, a recurring drought and a lack of infrastructure have made it one of the places with the lowest literacy rates in the world. About 3 adults in 4 cannot read and write, and 1 child in 4 is not in school.
A lot of the population is pastoralist and rural. They are isolated. Some of them are on the move. And not just Somaliland, Somalia. South Sudan has a similar large population like that. It's very difficult sometimes to sustain education with those children and those families.
Because of international sanctions, most banks cannot operate here. People use their phones and mobile banking apps to make payments. So not being able to read can make everyday life difficult.
Sometimes I couldn't read my customers' names. There was a big barrier there.
Mubarak is a camel herder. When he was a kid, he could only go to school for 2 years. Now, whenever he can, he takes classes on his phone while his camels are grazing out in the fields.
I can now read a long story. It's helped me to read my customers' names, their payments and messages on the apps. I can read news articles.
Efforts from the local government and international NGOs have seen literacy rates slowly improving. But in a place where a lot of the population is semi-nomadic and rural, reaching people remains a big challenge. Maybe the solution to this problem was in people's pockets all along. Sara Monetta, BBC News.